Have you ever stopped to think about the last time a human voice truly changed the course of history? Not shouted from a battlefield, not written in ink, but carried invisibly through a wire, crossing distance as if distance itself had suddenly lost its meaning. Imagine living in a world where silence ruled anything beyond eyesight, where oceans were walls and cities were islands, and then, in a single moment, hearing someone hundreds of miles away, as if they were standing right beside you. That moment did not just introduce a new machine. It rewired how humans relate to space, time, power, and each other. The telephone did not simply allow people to talk. It collapsed the world. Before the telephone, communication was slow, deliberate, and fragmented. Messages traveled at the speed of horses, ships, or at best, coded electrical pulses tapped into telegraph lines by trained operators. The telegraph was revolutionary for its time, but it was cold, mechanical, and inaccessible. It translated human thought into dots and dashes, stripping emotion, tone, hesitation, and urgency from the message. You could send information faster than ever before, but you could not truly speak. You could not hear fear in a voice, joy in laughter, or doubt in silence. Human connection was compressed into symbols, and for decades, that seemed good enough. In fact, many believed it was more than enough. Why would anyone need to hear a voice when words could already travel down a wire? That question lingered in the air as the 19th century raced forward. Industry expanded, cities grew, and the world became louder and more complex. Businesses demanded faster decisions. Families spread across continents. Governments sought control over vast territories. The telegraph strained under its own success, limited by its inability to carry more than one message at a time, and dependent on skilled intermediaries to translate thoughts into code. The problem was not speed anymore. The problem was humanity itself. People wanted presence. They wanted immediacy. They wanted to be heard, not interpreted. This was the tension that quietly set the stage for one of the most consequential inventions in history. And like many great breakthroughs, it did not arrive cleanly or fairly, or with a single name attached. The story of the telephone is not a straight line. It is a collision of ambition, rivalry, accidents, legal battles, and ideas that were often ahead of the technology needed to support them. Multiple inventors across different countries were chasing the same dream without fully realizing it. The dream of sending the human voice through electricity. Among them were Alexander Graham Bell and Elisha Gray, two men working independently on remarkably similar ideas. Both were deeply involved with improving the telegraph, trying to solve its limitations rather than replace it outright. Bell's fascination with sound, speech, and music pushed him to think differently about electrical signals. Instead of treating electricity as a simple on or off pulse, he imagined it as something fluid, capable of carrying the complex vibrations of the human voice. Gray, meanwhile, was experimenting with transmitting musical tones, unknowingly standing on the edge of something much larger. What began as an effort to send multiple messages down a single wire slowly transformed into a far more radical question. What if the wire could carry speech itself? The race was on, though few outside a small circle of inventors realized it. In February of 1876, both Bell and Gray rushed to the patent office with their ideas. Bell arrived first by hours. Those hours would echo through history. Weeks later, Bell successfully transmitted intelligible speech, forever tying his name to the invention of the telephone. Yet controversy immediately followed. Accusations of borrowed ideas, suspicious similarities, and questionable patent practices ignited decades of legal disputes. To this day, historians debate whether Bell was the sole inventor, the first successful one, or simply the man who arrived at the right place at the right time. But history rarely rewards purity. It rewards outcomes. What matters is not just who invented the telephone, but what happened next. Once the first voices traveled down wires, there was no going back. The idea spread faster than the infrastructure could support it. Early telephone systems were crude, unreliable, and deeply human. Calls were manually connected by operators who physically plugged wires into switchboards, becoming unseen participants in private conversations. Entire new professions emerged overnight. Entire new social norms followed. People had to learn how to speak into machines, how to greet invisible listeners, how to end conversations without body language. Even silence took on new meaning when transmitted across a line. As the technology improved, the telephone began to reshape economies. Businesses could coordinate instantly across cities. Stock markets reacted faster. News traveled with unprecedented speed. Governments realized that control over communication meant control over power. Telephone lines spread like veins across nations, then across oceans. The first transatlantic calls were not just engineering feats, they were symbolic acts. They proved that no physical barrier was permanent. Water, distance, and time could all be negotiated. By the early 20th century, the telephone had become a fixture of daily life, though not without resistance. Some feared it would destroy face-to-face interaction. Others worried about privacy, about voices being overheard, about dependence on machines. These concerns sound familiar today because they never went away. Each technological leap simply reframed them. As automatic switching replaced operators, conversations became more private, but also more impersonal. As phones entered homes, they blurred the boundary between public and private life. A ringing phone demanded attention, regardless of context. The machine dictated behavior. Then came the next great shift: mobility. For decades, the telephone was tethered to walls, desks, and places. Communication required you to be somewhere specific. The idea of carrying a phone with you seemed absurd, impractical, even comical. Early mobile phones were heavy, expensive, and limited, accessible only to governments, corporations, and the wealthy. Yet the vision persisted. Engineers imagined networks of cells, invisible grids covering entire cities, allowing calls to hop seamlessly from one transmitter to another. The concept existed long before the technology could make it real. When it finally did, everything accelerated. The first truly portable phones were awkward bricks with short battery life and long charging times. But they carried something far more powerful than convenience. They carried freedom. Suddenly, communication was no longer tied to place. You could be reached anywhere. And that changed expectations. Being unavailable became suspicious. Silence became intentional. The telephone evolved from a tool into an extension of identity. As devices shrank and capabilities expanded, the telephone absorbed other technologies. Text messaging revived written communication in a new form. Cameras turned phones into memory machines. Internet connectivity transformed them into gateways to the sum of human knowledge. At some point, almost without notice, the telephone stopped being primarily about talking. Voice became just one feature among many, often secondary to apps, images, and data. The original problem that sparked its invention, transmitting speech, became almost trivial. And yet, the essence of the telephone remains unchanged. It exists because humans need to connect. Not efficiently, not profitably, but emotionally. Every advancement in telephony has been driven by the same underlying force: the desire to collapse distance, to hear reassurance across fear, to coordinate action, to share moments, to feel less alone. Today, billions of people carry devices that would appear miraculous to the inventors of the 19th century. A single smartphone contains more computing power than entire early telephone networks combined. It connects to satellites, data centers, and global infrastructures so complex that no single person fully understands them. And still, when it rings, we answer it the same way humans always have, expecting another human on the other end. That is the quiet power of the telephone. It did not just change how we communicate. It changed how we experience presence. It made absence negotiable. It trained humanity to expect immediacy, to value speed, and to feel connected even when physically apart. It reshaped business, politics, relationships, and culture in ways that continue to unfold. So the next time your phone vibrates in your pocket, remember that it is not just a device. It is the result of centuries of curiosity, rivalry, ambition, and human longing. It is the descendant of a question once considered unnecessary. And it is still evolving, still reshaping us, just as we reshape it. If this story made you see the telephone differently, leave a comment with your thoughts. How do you think instant communication has changed who we are as humans? If you want to explore more inventions that quietly transform the world, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to like this video. The next story might be even closer to your hands than you realize.